In the 1950s, every woman had a bolero. If you were going to wear a sundress or a strappy evening dress or even a strapless evening dress, you would wear a little bolero that is a little casual shrug or short jacket, probably with long sleeves. A few of them had short sleeves, but then mainly they were long sleeves, that you would wear either when you were leaving the beach as the sun was going down, or just to cover up that extra skin shown off by your sundress or your evening dress on a cooler evening. I even read in a magazine of 1954, it said, from every young child to stout matron on the beach, every woman would have a bolero to put on as the sun went down. I don't think I'd like to be called a stout matron, really. It's quite good that women aren't described as stout matrons anymore, isn't it? That's a step forward. And the word bolero, which sounds definitely un-English, doesn't it? Boleros actually came from Spain, and they originated from the costumes worn by flamenco dancers or bullfighters. You know, it's that sort of, you know what I mean, that sort of open curved front. So they originated in Spain, but they really came to prominence in fashion in the 1950s. And when I was cutting out my Marilyn Monroe dress, before I cut it out, I made sure that I cut out a little bolero, and then I made the most of the fabric I had left to make as full a dress as possible. So this bolero, I think, should be easy to sew within a day, which is another advantage of them. They're quick and easy sews, and they're very cute and pretty, we hope. So I shall get on and show you how I've made mine. This is my bolero cutout. I've just laid the front, which has the curved edge, against the back, which will just be joined together on the straight edge. And it's basically just stitched together with these bias cut facings around the front and then also around the sleeve band. So quite simple sew, hopefully. So this is the sewing I've done so far. I've made the little darts in the back sleeves of the bolero, and I've also joined the overarm seam that runs from the sleeve right up to the neckline, and also the underarm seam, and I've used French seams. And I'm now going to join the centre back of the bolero. Now I can just use the selvage edges. So my bolero is taking shape, and now what I need to do is stitch the front band in place, the neck band and the sleeve bands. So that's 1, 2 and then each sleeve, so 4 bands in all, and they're all stitched on in exactly the same way, which, because it's contrast and I'm using the underside of the fabric, I'm going to stitch wrong side to right side. So the neck band I'll stitch all the way around, and then with that seam I'll press it and turn it in, and from the top side you stitch over so that seam is then stitched down in place, and then you turn the band over, you're folding it in half, so you've got your contrast band there, and then on the inside that will just be turned under and slip stitched in place. So a really neat way of finishing, and that is done the same way for the band around the front, which is this long band that goes right from the neckband all the way round. This band was cut on the bias all the way around and then up the front edge, and then the sleeves stitched in exactly the same way. So I'll match the seams, the underarm seam with the seam of those cuffs. So wrong side to right side for me because I'm using the contrast. Seam that round, press the seam inwards, top stitch across from the right side, then turn the cuff over, fold it in half, turn under the edge, and then slip stitch it in place. And then I would be finished, and it all would be quite quick, except of course this is a project of mine, so it has to involve a bound buttonhole, doesn't it? Yes. So it only involves one bound buttonhole. So just to remind you of the pattern, it's got a bound buttonhole, right, just one at the top. So put that there. The buttons that I am considering, they're all mother of pearl because this fabric is quite a muted shade of powder blue, and those are the buttons that I'm considering. And I'm going to take that one out and make it down to those two, and I think I'm going to go with this one because I quite like the way it shades from dark to light, which seems to sort of echo the dark to light of the fabric. And also it's quite large and quite a nice little statement at the top, but because it's mother of pearl, it will go with anything, won't it? So that involves a bound buttonhole, and as we all know, one bound buttonhole takes a while. Nearly there, and I just wanted to show you what I've done. And this is a really beginner friendly project, or something that you can do if you don't have much time. I found it quite satisfying actually. There's not much that can go wrong, which is always nice, and you have this pretty garment at the end. So what I've done is, you can see I've attached the borders all round, and I've just left the neck edge open to show you. So the neck is the only piece that is interface, and the neckline is here, so it's just stitched over the front band there. And what you do is you press the seam upwards, and that's the same for the front band and the sleeves, and then on the top side just stitch down to hold that seam in place. And of course the reason that you're doing that on the right side rather than the wrong side, where you can see that you're enclosing all the seam, is because you want to make sure that there is a nice even line of stitching. So I've done that, I've turned it under, and now all I'm going to do is slip stitch that edge down on the wrong side along the line of stitching, which is exactly what I did on the sleeves and on the front band. I've got my bound buttonhole done through the facing as well, so I just need to also stitch on the button. And as you can see from the pattern, the bound buttonhole is done horizontal as usual, straight against the sides of the neckline, which actually then joins at that angle, as you can see in the pattern. And this is my bolero, which of course I'm wearing with my Marilyn dress and a pair of white gloves, because of course they always wore gloves in the 1950s. And you can see the shape with the dolman sleeves and the dipped back with the curved front, and those contrast bands going around the waist and around the sleeves and the neckline. And you can also see just how easy these boleros were to throw on over a sundress, and they look kind of smart but also quite casual and feminine. And I think in that curved open front, I never really thought about it, but you do see the influence of it's the man's flamenco or bullfighter costume, isn't it? That open curved front. And I've just closed it at the top with the huge mother of pearl button, and I thought I would try out different handbags. That's one of my Radley bags, which of course I love for Radley the dog, but it's not really vintage, is it? But I thought I'd give it a go with this outfit with its seaside theme. But I think my 40s mother of pearl bag goes a little bit better. Purse, I think you call it in America, don't you? I think that goes a little bit better because, of course, I've got the big mother of pearl buttons. So a little mother of pearl bag goes very well, I thought I'd have a go at, if I have time, accessorising the outfits I make with any little kind of vintage items that I have around. And I also thought I must remind you of what the Marilyn dress looks like without the bolero, and also just to show you how easy it is to slip off, and there we go. And also, of course, just slip back on again when it gets cool or you just want to cover up. I mean, I practically always want to cover up because I burn and I like to be covered up anyway. So, yeah, so we just can do out that one button, and then it's already again the outfit, and I'll put the gloves on. Remember my father saying my aunt, his older sister, decided she needed a pair of white gloves for every day of the week, and their father, my grandfather, said she mustn't get ideas like that. It can't have been her own idea. It must have been a thing in the 1950s. Oh yes, I have a little pair of white gloves for every day of the week. She probably read it in a magazine somewhere. Anyway, there we are. That's my finished look with my new bolero. I hope you enjoyed seeing me make my bolero for my Marilyn Monroe dress. And I realised I forgot to tell you what I was wearing earlier, because this is actually quite a fun dress, quite an interesting dress, because it's a CC41 dress. CC41, for anyone that might not know, is the utility label for wartime rationing. So the British government hired some actually rather fabulous designers like Hardy Amy's to produce clothes with a very economic use of fabric, and they carried the CC41 utility scheme label, which this dress does. And I think it really, all the kind of, I'm showing it to you. I think the kind of really brightly coloured florals are really evocative of the wartime effort to keep up spirits. And while I am on the 1930s, 40s, of course, should mention that you see a lot of boleros during this time span too. So although one tends to equate them with the 50s, they were very much around in the 30s and 40s too. Probably not quite as much as the 50s. Oh, and also I should show you, let me see it, my little 1940s white rabbit brooch. I have a bit of a thing for rabbits. Before I had dogs, I had house rabbits, house trained, sort of. So yes, my little 1940s white rabbit brooch, sort of amongst the floral daisies. That's the theme. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I shall look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.